Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Aloha, everybody. Happy Sunday. 2 seconds before the countdown timer ended and we went to go live, I had a big sneeze. Here's hoping that was the only one. I usually go in 5s for sneezes.
We'll find out. Wow, I think I blew a head gasket. Oh boy. Anyway, we made it through another one. Welcome to the end of December. Super Bowl season's over for us. It's now the off season. We get to kind of chill for a little bit, get ready for the New Year's madness, and kind of rest up, refresh, take a little bit of downtime, and just relax. But then we get to gear up for Valentine's Day. Some people will argue that Valentine's and Easter are easily just as busy as Christmas. I've not been fortunate enough to have that issue, but you know how it goes. We it just depends. So, um, today is an open Q&A. I'm going to answer your questions if you put them over in the chat. I've got a couple over here in the background ready to go. But before I do anything, I'm going to, soon as I find it, they've changed the interface on this. And wow, now I can't find it. Where is my Now I can't. Man, there they put them. Okay, they've changed the interface just slightly. So thank you for your patience. I'm going to talk about Steve over at Harneal Media, who dodged a bullet last night. I think Steve has a magic dome over the Harneal Media compound there because, I mean, there were lines of tornadoes going through Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi last night. And I think he hit the magic button, closed the dome. He didn't get hit, thankfully. I mean, phew. But they split off and went to the north and south of him. And that's just too close for comfort. So glad you and yours made it through everything all right, Steve. But that just kind of shows the dedication that Steve has because he worked all the way through it, not knowing whether he was going to lose internet or power. And that's what I mean. I don't know how he does everything he does. So I'll just say if you're even thinking about a website, maybe you have products or services you want to offer to the public at large and quit paying. Commissions and upload fees and all this other kind of stuff. Head over to harnealmedia.com and talk to Steve. He'll help you set up a web store where you can offer those products or services to the public directly. So um, do yourself a favor and get over there and check out Harneal Media. You'll find a Harneal Media link to Harneal Media down in the description of this live stream and every other video and live stream on my channel. And it's that way for a reason because Steve will give you results. He won't give you excuses. He won't give you a runaround. He's just good at what he does. He does it very well, and he's very dedicated to his craft. So do yourself a favor, head over to harnealmedia.com, click on that contact us button, and give Steve a shout. You won't regret it. Trust me on this. Okay, let's go ahead and get into some of your questions, and I'm going to start with the easiest for me first. Maybe not the easiest to y'all, but definitely the easiest for me first. And that is Alan Williamson. Wow, first day with the new teeth, Mark. Now I've had them for at least a year. Anyway, I played around with the box gadget tool. My material was 1200 millimeters in X, 600 millimeters in Y, but it placed some of my parts overlapping when there was easily enough space. I'm not sure why. Um, Full disclosure, I have to claim my ignorance because I have never used the box gadget. I haven't used many gadgets at all. There's a couple, but not many. So I don't know if it's possible after you set up everything, after you get your parts laid out. I don't know if you can move those parts manually and then go for it from there. But that's right off the bat the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would head over to the Vectric support forum. And that's easily found. Just type in Vectric forum and it'll be the first one that pops up. And either ask your question over there or do a search for Box Gadget. Because trust me when I say you are not the first person to have that issue. There are people over on the Vectric support forum who have worked with gadgets, who run the same software you're running, and they're more than happy to help. So I would definitely, whether you're having issues or not, I would definitely get over to the Vectric support forum and sign up, become a member. The membership is made up of users just like you and me. There are a couple of Vectric employees that are also members, obviously, but overwhelmingly, they keep to themselves unless it's something they need to get involved in. But if you have a question about the software or compatibility, or you're having an issue with a file or something of that nature, chances are somebody over there is either run through the run into the same problem you have, or a patch is coming or has already come and maybe you just haven't updated yet. So definitely get over and become a member of the support forum and use it. It's a great resource that not a lot of people know about. I will put a link to the Vectric forum down in the description of this video as soon as we're finished live here. I just wrote myself a note, and I'm going to start including it in the description of all my live streams, because this is about 4 times now since the 1st of November that I've recommended it. So I'm going to make it a permanent link. So, and Steve is right on it. This is what I'm talking about. There's a link right there, and I will put the same link down in the description of this live stream as soon as we're finished live here. Okay. The next question we got that kind of ties in with this is from Jim Brown. He said he forgot how to, he says upgrade, but trust me, it's just an update. His software, he's on version 12.010 now. And he did it while we were waiting on the countdown timer and everything else. So the easiest way I have found to update the software, and what we're talking about is I'm running right now Aspire 12.013, and that is the latest update. It is the latest version. You will, whether you're logged into your VN Company account or not, you will see a blue link over here in this area, right there where it says Mark Lindsay on mine. It'll either say your name or it'll say sign in. Right underneath it will be a blue link. Now, a lot of people try to go through that blue link, and I've found there can be some issues at times. So what I generally do, and this is the way I update all the time, is I'll go to the help menu rather, and then come down here and check for updates. And you'll get the user account control warning, and this will pop up. Click next to check for an update. Okay, we click next and it'll go through. Now, mine is the most recent update, so I'm fine. If there is an update you need to do, it'll say that this updater found an update but needs to restart. So that's when you'll go ahead and click OK and then close your Vectric software. It will then apply the update, then start the software for you, then ask you, do you want to read the release notes? Go ahead and read those release notes. That will tell you what changes they have made. These last two most recent updates, 012 and 013, they basically fixed a lot of bugs. There were a few obscure bugs where if you had toolpath notes enabled and you created a job sheet, some of them would be overlying one another and you couldn't really read it. So it's a case of these updates to the software are simply that. They're updates. They're bug fixes. They may change a few small things, but if it's going to be like adding a tool or changing a tool path or something like that, generally speaking, it won't be done with an update. An update generally fixes things within the current version. An upgrade is a completely new version and a completely new install. So we're running version 12.0 right now. When 12.5 comes out, it will be a totally new install of the software. You will still have 12.0, but you'll be adding 12.5. Now, 12.5 is considered an in-family upgrade. So it's still version 12. It's within the version 12 family. So that means it's a free upgrade for all users of version 12. If you have 11.5 or older, it's not a free upgrade. There will be a fee associated with it, and that depends on which software package you have. The fee is different for VCarve Desktop, VCarve Pro, and Aspire, and Cut 2D Desktop and Pro as well. I keep forgetting about Cut 2D. So that's basically the easiest way to update is I go to help and then down to check for updates and then just follow the prompts. It's a very simple process. So let's see. John Thumb asked, I'm new and set up my CNC and have some questions. Does my CNC controller / Mazzo, VFD, and shop vac need to be on separate circuits? Probably. Now, one thing that you might want to consider, or one thing you have to take into consideration, rather, is the VFD for your spindle. I'm guessing it's for your spindle. Is it 220? If it's 220, naturally it's going to be on its own circuit. Personally, I put mine on separate circuits. And the reason for that is the CNC runs on one circuit, a 20 amp circuit, and that's what it needs. My shop vac, just simply because of proximity and the way my shop is laid out, my shop vac is over against the wall, this wall. So it's on a separate circuit. Each wall in my shop is a different circuit and the lighting is a separate circuit. So my shop vac is over there and my dust collector is also wired in over there. It's wired onto this wall circuit. It needs a 20 amp circuit. My spindle is 220 volt. So it's on a 220 volt circuit. So all of mine are on separate circuits and I don't have any issues at all. It's going to depend on whether It's going to depend on the voltage of your VFD and spindle, but it's also going to depend on the amperage that your CNC controller and the machine itself takes. My CNC is running off of the back wall circuit, and my computer slash controller, because I'm using Mach 4 right now, I'm using Mach 4. Well, in fact, right over this shoulder, you can see that black plug right there. That is for my computer slash controller. The big black plug right there, that's the 220 volt. That's to my spindle. You can't see it, but the control box right there, that's plugged in on the back wall. I would highly suggest you put the controller and the shop vac on separate circuits if it's at all possible. So you're not supposed to run more than 80% of the circuit's max amperage. And check with Mazzo. I'm assuming you have a Onefinity based on what you're describing. Check with Onefinity and ask them about the amperage rating. If it needs a 15 amp circuit, great. If it needs a 20 amp circuit, you're fine. But then also check the amperage of your shop vac, and also remember that when you first turn your shop vac on, it's going to there's going to be a spike in the amperage to get that motor spun up. And then once it's spun up, it'll come back down, the current draw on it. Just be safe. And believe me, if you pop a breaker, that's your first clue that you need to add a separate circuit. So I did it because I was kind of sort of choiceless, but it works out better for me. So, and I hope that answered that question. So, let's see here. David, Vortex 8 says, I stripped a screw that holds the oil in one of my guide blocks when oiling my machine. Should I replace the block? I assume you're talking about a linear bearing block. It depends on how long you've been running the machine. And what it goes to. You should replace bearing blocks in pairs at the minimum. So if this is on, say, your x-axis, you have an upper and a lower bearing block, I would replace both of them, and then oil them up. Generally speaking, there are ways of and it's going to depend. You say you stripped a screw. Do you mean the head, or do you mean the actual, like a Phillips head or something of that nature? I would probably replace that one and the one directly opposite. So like I said, if you have an upper and lower, I would replace them in pairs. So let's see. I hope that helps. Okay, you strip the threads, then I would definitely replace the bearing block. Retapping threads on a bearing block is not a good idea because you've got all those ball bearings inside, and now you're introducing chunks of metal. I wouldn't do it. It may be the more expensive of the options, but everything's relative. I mean, if it's $30 for a bearing, it's better to go ahead and just swap them out. I wouldn't introduce a bunch of chips into the inside of a linear bearing block. So that's probably not the answer you wanted, David, but got to be honest, Let's see here. Rich Bratcher says, I know that I have to break in my new spindle for given times and RPMs. Yes. Do I need to run a warm-up procedure for carving or before carving after that? If so, how long would be good enough for a warm-up? This is where I'm kind of spoiled, Rich. The short answer is yes, you'll need to do a spindle warm-up. Check with your spindle manufacturer. I have the Heitco 4-horse spindle on my Avid, and fortunately enough, my Mach 4 controller has a spindle warm-up routine built in. So all I do is I click the spindle warm-up. It'll give me a warning to make sure that either the collet and bit are out of the spindle or make sure that it's wrench tight in the spindle, one of the two. Then click OK. And what it does is it comes on and it runs at 12,000 RPM for 2.5 minutes. Then it jumps up to 18,000 RPM and runs for another 2.5 minutes. Then it shuts off. That's the spindle warm-up routine. And I do that every day before I run it. Heitco, the manufacturer of the spindle, suggests that you do that if the spindle has not been run for 6 hours. I, generally speaking, don't leave that much of a gap. When I'm running the machine, I'm running the machine. If I run it and then shut down and go in the house and eat, I'm back within at the max 2 hours, and I can keep going. But every morning, every time I turn on the machine, the first thing I do is home it. Second thing I do is move it to the back end where it's out of the way, and I start that warm-up cycle. So 2.5 minutes at 12,000 RPM, 2.5 minutes at 18,000 RPM. You came in and you said it's an air-cooled spindle. So was mine. It's an air-cooled spindle as well. And, it works. It works fantastic. So, let's see here. I found a tiny screw on top of my gantry. No idea where it came from. That is that is kind of a sick feeling because it's a case of, oh crap. Now what? Well, what I do when I find something like that, first I replay the Rolodex in my brain to see if I set something up there. If I can't remember, that's when it's time to grab the wrenches and my Allen key and go around and just start tightening things up. These CNCs produce a lot of vibration. There's a lot of shaking going on, even if it looks rock solid. You're running this direction and suddenly you move that direction. It's jumping all over the place. Things will loosen up. So it's every once in a while, it's a good thing to go around and do a wrench check and just tighten things down. And, believe me, it's a good thing to do. And for that very reason, I have found that kind of stuff myself. Now, a few people talking about a warm-up cycle. Would be nice if Onefinity had a procedure for it. It's new Redline spindle. Ask them. Mike Healy said, I heard you always supposed to have a bit in the spindle during warm-up. The notice that pops up says to either make sure that the nut, the collet nut and collet, as well as the bit, is either out or wrench tight. It doesn't matter to the spindle if you have a bit in it or not. Now, all manufacturers are different. If your manufacturer says to make sure you've got a bit in it and it's wrench tight, then by all means follow the manufacturer's instruction. My manufacturer says either make sure it's wrench tight or take it out. You don't want a bit flying at you at 18,000 RPM. 8 Center says, be nice if Masso had a warm-up button too, but I suppose we can make a program and just run that instead. Again, suggested to it. Suggest it. I mean, they don't know what you want unless you ask for it. There may be a way for you to add a button that will do exactly that. So by all means, go for it. But that's the way to get things, is to ask for it. They don't know what you want if you don't tell them. And there may be, now Papa's Workshop comes, he says you can add a macro to warm up your spindle. Ask them how. Ask them how. Ask them what the procedure is. Make them put up a page on their web page. Maybe they already have a video to show you how to do that. Maybe this is the kick in the butt that they need to get them to do it, to make that upgrade for you. So, Landis Stute says, I have Mach 3 and wrote my own warm up using brains function for Spindle. Yes, there you go. There you go. Very, very, very much can do that type of thing. But no, I don't have a video on it. I'm no longer using Mach 3. I'm using Mach 4 for now. I will also say, I say for now because Avid has come out with a new controller. And I was going to ask about this toward the end, but we were already, we're already talking about it. I'm currently using the CNCRP. God, I can't remember which controller it is. They have come out with a new controller they call the EX controller, and it does not use Mach 4. It uses Centroid Acorn, CNC 12. That is being shipped tomorrow. I'm getting that set up. That's being shipped tomorrow. I should have it by next weekend. So I will be changing over from Mach 4 to Centroid Acorn. There are some benefits to that. I'm not changing to servos or anything. I'm going to be using my NEMA 34 steppers. And so my machine's going to be down for a while I get that changed. I mean, I got to change out the entire control box and run different cables and things of that nature. Then I've got to add a tool length sensor over. I think I'm going to put it on this side right there on the front. And what that does is you'll set Z0 one time on the material surface. And then when you do a tool change, you do the tool change and tell it, and it'll come over to the sensor and do a tool length touch off, then go back and start carving. So I will be one of those folks that'll be putting all of my tool paths in one G-code file and running it. Because when it comes time for a tool change, I can pause it there, go in the house, go to the bathroom, eat a sandwich, come back out, and then start running from there after I do the tool change. So I will be using the EX controller system with Centroid Acorn, and it's going to be a learning experience because the interface is totally new. So expect a few videos on it. For those of you with an Avid CNC that is thinking about the new EX system, we're going to learn together, and then you can decide whether you want to upgrade or not. So yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, let's get back to your questions here. Let's see. I think I saw Papa up here said, or maybe it wasn't him. somebody said, there it is. Papa's Workshop says G-Sender has a warm-up cycle. So if you're using G-Sender, there you go. So, 8 Center says you've been on the fence for this EX for a while now, right? Not really on the fence. I'm one of those guys that likes to wait. When new technology comes out, newer operating systems, things of that nature, I like to wait. Usually because there are going to be issues and growing pains as they get. I mean, they can beta test something until the cows come home, but there's always going to be somebody out there that has an issue, and 3 or 4 more people say, yeah, I'm having the same issue, and they have to work through that and do a lot of patches. And that's just the nature of the beast. It happens. I'm the kind of guy that likes to wait until there's been a few patches out and they get a lot of that stuff settled. Then I'll talk to the folks who have made that upgrade and go for it. Well, it's been they released this in August, so you can do the math. It's been what, 4 months, 5 months now since the EX system has been out. They've made a couple of patches, and I'm following on the forum. There have been a few rough spots and rocky places for some folks, but there's a fix right there. Most of them have been mechanical issues that were symptoms before the upgrade to the EX system. Some people, their computer doesn't have enough power to run the Centroid, so they had to get a new computer to run it. But yeah, I'll be getting it, and so we're all going to learn about it together. So, Ayal says, if this was already discussed, skip this, but what exactly is the purpose of a warm-up period? Why is it needed, and how long is it expected to be? It's needed to warm up, just as it says. It's needed to warm up. If it's been particularly cold, it's there to get the grease moving and freed up and warmed up in the bearings. It's there to get the spindle up to operating temperature before the additional load of a bit and material is put on the spindle. You can talk to folks who work in professional machine shops. Universally, they will say, yes, they do a spindle warm up. With routers, it's not as important, mainly because they're made for a totally different purpose. But with a spindle, yeah, it is. It is needed. It is necessary. And how long the spindle warm-up should be is going to depend on the manufacturer. Some folks, like I said, mine runs at 12,000 RPM for 2.5 minutes, then jumps up to 18,000 and runs for 2.5 minutes, and then shuts down. So yeah, grease makes sense as it becomes more liquid upon warm up. Yes. And it just needs to be at operating temperature before it has the extra stress of a bit. And this is especially true if you're doing, real deep surfacing of something like a slab. And a lot of people use the bigger versions of these machines for surfacing slabs, and that's all it does. So they've got a big 3-inch fly cutter on there hogging out, taking off up to 1/4 of an inch of material at a time. The spindle needs to be up to operating temp before you do that to it, especially on a cold morning. But Avid says, and Heitco, the manufacturer of my spindle, says to do it if the machine has not been running 6 hours, because it'll cool off and everything needs to warm up. So yeah, and Greg kind of backed that up. I do a lot of slabs on my Avid. Believe it or not, so do I, Greg. I do more surfacing on this than I thought I ever would. It's not quite to the point to being the world's most expensive planer, but it pushes the limit sometimes, So, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, Spider Spid, how do you do? Or, yeah, newish to your channel. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Desktop version 12 point whatever. I know how to space letters individual when in text mode, but how do I space an entire word? Ah, good one. So you want to, if I'm reading this right, what you're wanting to do is, let's go up here into my draw text tool, and we'll wait forever for it to load up the all my fonts. And I'm going to stick with this one here. So you want to be able to space individual words. There are a couple of ways of doing that. Let's say Mark Lindsay CNC. Okay, close. If, for instance, these are too close together, I shouldn't have closed my text window. If these are too close together, here within the text window and with my text selected, I can I'll zoom in a little bit, but look at my cursor. You see how it has the plus sign? Then we have the V and the A with arrows pointing towards one another. Little arrowheads there. If I click on that, it's going to bring those two words closer together. If I hold down Shift, you see those arrowheads point away from each other. Now we're going to move them further apart. If that's not enough, about the only thing you can do from here is split them up by converting them to curves. Now, I don't think text, yeah, I can't break it into lines. I would have to convert this to curves and then move them around individually. But what I could also do is do each word separately. Now, this can be a pain, a major pain. And let's bring that margin size normal. Well, I'll just close that. Go into move and transform mode, hold down Shift, scale it down, slide it over. And then go back in without it selected and type the words in separately. Close it, move and transform mode, shrink it down. No, wrong one. Control Z, grab the wrong button. There we go. About like so. Now I can move them separately. If that's not what you want to do, we can again go back and close. Now, if I want to move these around, I can right click, convert to vectors. Now I can move them anywhere I want by going into move and transform mode and spacing them out like such. Now, the problem with this is they're no longer text objects. So if I select them and go back up in here into draw text, it's going to open up my draw text tool, but it's going to deselect these. These are no longer text objects. So I can't edit them this way. So I would have to go in, delete it, draw new text if I needed to edit, like I discovered a spelling error or something. So Yeah. So, you have Control Z to undo that, Control Z to undo that, Control Z to undo that, and now I'm back to having a text object. And the way you could tell the difference is because we have solid pink lines. When I right click, and they have changed it from convert to curves to convert to vectors here in the right click menu. Used to say convert to curves, which is why I said convert to curves earlier. So, all right. Let me see here. Still talking a lot about spindle warm up and what have you. And again, it's always a good idea. As Pete says, best practice to warm up your spindle before you put a load on it. Yes, especially if it's been really cold. So let's see here, and I hope that answered your question, Spider. And thank you. Let's see. John Thumb asking, having issues downloading tool databases. I was able to load the Amana one, but when I tried with Bits and Bits and Whiteside, they do not show to be loaded. Is this user error? Well, it's possible because there are some variables there. Firstly, are you importing the database after you download it? Just because you download it doesn't mean you've imported it. You'll need to go to Toolpaths, Tool Database, and come down. Is this it? Add a group? No. There it is. Import a database right there. And then navigate to the folder that database is in and select it, click OK. Also, don't forget to look down here and see, is it down below somewhere? It may not just all of a sudden be up here. It may be down below in another list someplace, in another category. So I'm going to give you a pro tip here, a little word to the wise. I have discovered that, especially Amana, if you download Amana's tool database, Amana no longer has individual tool files for individual tools. So if you download the Amana tool database, you're getting every tool they make that they have a tool file for. You just saw how long it took for me to load the fonts when I went into the draw text tool. Multiply that by about 5, and that's how long it takes to load the database from Amana Tools. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate this. I will go up here. Do I have it down here? I have some older versions of Aspire. Which one is it? I want to say it's 9.5. Let me run Aspire 9.5. There we go. Now on this older version, I have to create a, okay. Now I can go into my tool database and let's see how long that takes to load. And okay, that wasn't too bad. I don't have it here. I don't have it in this. Yes, I do. There is the Tools Today master database. And that actually went pretty quick. I'm surprised. But you can see what I'm talking about here. This is every tool that Amana makes. And this is an old database. Now that's just a 1/4 inch shank. There's the 3/8. 1/2, 5/8, 3/4. There is no need for all of these different tools, especially if you don't even have a 1/2 inch collet for your router slash spindle. And we're not even through all of the categories yet. We've got composite bits, aluminum bits, wood, plastic, steel, foam, V bits, core box bits. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. And this is all within the Amana tool database. Now, I'm surprised it loaded as fast as it did, because usually it takes a heck of a lot longer to download that tools today, or to down that. So what I do, and I need to do it because this is an old database, the Tools Today Master Database. I download and import it into an old version of the software. Like this is in version 9.5. Then if I buy a new Amana bit, let's say I buy this tapered, no, let's not go with that, 1/4 inch shape shank. Yeah, right. Let's say I buy that tapered ball nose bit, the 46583. I will select it like I have here and export that tool file. Then go to my tool database in version 12 and import that tool here. So I only have the tools I own in my active version. There's no sense in having a bunch of tools you don't even own in your tool database. It just becomes too cumbersome, and it takes a long time for it to load. Now, you multiply that by the Amana tool database, the Whiteside tool database, IDC Woodcraft database, and the Bits and Bits. You've got a bunch of tools you don't even own in your database. It's just easier to organize if you export individual tools that you actually own and put that into your current working version. That's what I've always done. And it really helps a lot when it comes to, man, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it just decided to start raining like a son of a gun here. It really makes a difference when you start to go accessing tools, because you'll sit there and wait forever for all those tools to load and populate in that tool database. So it works for me. I hope that answered your question, John. You have to do more than just download that tool database. You have to decompress it if it is compressed, a zip file, for instance. You have to unzip it and then import that database. So, 8th Center says, in jointing pieces, wow. Is it possible for lateral pressures to push a curve along the edge up to 0.4 millimeter along 3 to 4 foot lengths? Best practice to use a final pass. Personally, I don't joint on the CNC. I joint on my table saw. I have a I have a Freud glue line rip blade that I absolutely love. I use a do I have it handy? Where is my glue line rip blade? I will find a link and put it down in the description. There we go. Oh, come on, Mark. Put your fingers under it. It's a very good blade. It won't break the bank. Freud Industrial glue line rip. And it will give you a silky smooth edge. I joint on my table saw. Now, you're asking, is it possible for it to do that? Anything is possible. it depends on how you're mounting your material. It also depends on the material itself. Is it, obviously it's not straight, otherwise you wouldn't be joining it, but has it acclimated to your shop, or is it still in the process of twisting and turning and moving? Let's see. Is it possible for lateral pressures to push a curve along the edge up to 0.4 meters on a 3 or 4 foot length? Again, anything is possible. Anything is possible. Yes, John, I will put a link in the description to that blade. I'll put 2 links, one to the full curve rip blade and one to the thin curve rip blade. And I love these blades. They don't break the bank. They're 50 something dollars each, but that's what we used at the cabinet shop, and that's who I knew to go to when I wanted a glue line rip blade. And they're for ripping. I don't use them for cross cutting, and I don't use them for general purpose, just any kind of cutting. I use these when I need a nice smooth edge along a piece of material. So, but yes, I will put a link in the description, and they will be Amazon affiliate links. I'm sorry, but that's one way for you to support the channel at no cost to you. It's just if you buy that blade through that link, I will get a small commission at no extra cost to you. And that's one way you can help support the channel if you'd like to. Let's see here. Jaleel Ali, chipboard cutting, best tool. This kind of opens up a can of worms, because something I've noticed, at least here in the US, is everybody has a different definition of what chipboard is. So there are a couple of ways to go when it comes to cardboard that is not corrugated. You can go with a drag knife, which is a razor blade in a housing that attaches to your spindle, and then you don't turn the spindle on and just let it cut along the vectors. But it's been my experience that just about any rotary cutter, be it upcut or downcut, is going to give you chewed up edges. They're not going to be laser clean, which brings me to the next point that might be better suited for laser. That's not to say that rotary cutters can't cut chipboard, just that sometimes it's not worth it. I have heard of people, and it seems like a lot of effort to me, rather than just paying to get a drag knife. I have heard of some people sandwiching chipboard in between 2 pieces of plywood and then doing a plunge cut and cut through that plywood through the chipboard while it's sandwiched in between. And that does help with cleaning up edges, but you're also wasting a lot of plywood at the same time. I would just say experiment, and understand that there just may not be a best bit for cutting chipboard. This may be something that you will need to use a drag knife or even a laser on. So CNC routers are not always the right tool for the job. So David Hittenberger says, ungroup the words from each other, then select the word you want to move. Well, let's get in here and see if that'll work. Let me bring this back up. We'll select these. Now, let's see. Select text, convert to vectors, copy to, move to guidelines. Now, if you meant over here, ungroup, this is not a group. This is a text object. So this is not a group. Make sure you have selected at least one group that you can exit out of any active forms tools. Okay. Let's go into text here and see. I just thought of one that we can do. I just thought of a way we can do this. And it involves cheating the system a little bit here. What I'll do is I put my cursor up here in my text box right in front of the L, and I'm going to click backspace so that Mark Lindsay is one word. With that cursor still flashing between the K and the L, I'm going to do a hard return. Close. Select the text, right click, text, break block into lines. So now that's separate from that. Now I can hold down Shift, resize, bring that over, say here. Nah, I'll put it above my Y0. And hold down Shift, resize, and bring that up above. And now I can move it around. So that's another way. Cheat the system. And we'll drag this about like so. Hold down Shift. Nah. Well, anyway, you get the idea. So, let's see here. John Thumb says, I created a file to surface my wasteboard based on your video, but my cutting area is smaller. Is there a better placement to have it start other than the middle, like where it overhangs in front? I, generally speaking, don't start in the middle. I did similar to what 8 Center says here. I go front to back. I surface along my y-axis. I will set my origin and my XY0 to this corner, both in the software and out here on the machine. I set to the corner of the spoil board. When I draw my pattern up in the software, I make the rectangle a 1/4 inch, I make it 1 inch wider than the spoil board. That way, the surfacing bit will come off of the spoil board by a 1/2 inch as it's riding along the edge. I also do all of my X moves off of the spoil board. My spindle will come out to about here. And I know you can't see that really. It'll come about 2 inches off of the front of the spoil board. And it'll go about 2 inches off of the back of the spoil board. That's where I have it make all the X moves and come this way. I do not start in the middle and go with the offset method. I start in the front left corner and I surface along the Y. Now that's totally up to you. Maybe your spoil board is so big you can't have that bit come off of the table before it makes its X move and then come back for the next surface path. So it's totally up to you. What I did when I made this spoil board is I laid down my MDO table, then laid the MDF on top of it, and I moved my gantry until I triggered a soft limit. Then I brought it back 2 inches. Put a pen, a Sharpie pen, well, it's over there. You know what a Sharpie looks like, in my 1/2 inch collet, moved it over, and I drew a line across that piece of MDF. That's how I knew how big to cut my material. And I cut that MDF into 7-inch wide strips, put in the T-track, and there you go. I'll hit my limit switch if I start the cut from the front left corner. Then you need to cut down your spoil board a little bit. If going all the way to that corner hits a limit switch, move it back, find where it won't hit the limit switch, and mark that, and then trim down your spoil board a little bit. If your gantry can't reach that to at least surface it, then it's useless to you. Because if you surface and leave that area up front that's not surfaced, you've just made an area down inside your spoil board that's lower than that front lip or that back lip or those 2 edge lips. Now, if you try to put something longer than that on there, you've got problems. Your spoil board needs to be big enough to do the work you want to do, but small enough to where that surfacing bit can surface all of it. You don't want to leave any unsurfaced surfaces on that spoil board. So, 8 Center is asking, is there a specific reason you use the Y and not the X? I use X just because I did. I use Y just because I did. Actually, not to be flip about it, the main reason I surface along the Y comes down to tramming. It's a lot easier to adjust the tilt out of my spindle than it is to adjust the nod. When you're adjusting tilt, it's got an eccentric cam on the Z-axis, and all it takes is loosening the bolts, turn that cam slightly, measure again, turn it a little bit, measure it again, tighten everything down. It's easier to get my tilt down to 0 than it is to get nod, because then you're talking about loosening all the bolts and putting in or taking out shims. So I've got it down to 0 on the tilt, but I'm about 1,000 forward in the nod. So actually the top of my spindle should come back 1 thou. I'm not going to mess with it. So I got it down to 1 thou. I leave it alone and walk softly when I walk around it so it doesn't change. So that's why I go in my Y. I don't get any shingling when I go across on the X, because I know I'm just going to have to sand that out. There may be a little bit of scalloping, but I've surfaced so many things, it comes out nice and smooth. So, John Thumb says, so in the program I should set the XY datum in the design tab position to the bottom left. That's what I do. Now, having said all this, John, a lot of people will go ahead and set to the center and use the offset method. If that works for you, there's nothing wrong with it. This is one of those cases where there really is no best. If it works for you safely, you get the result that you want, and there are no other issues, then that's the best. If it's, and I say the same thing when it comes to tools. If it's a tool you can afford, that fits your budget, it's a tool that does what you want it to do, it does it safely, and you get the result you want. Doesn't matter if it's a $95 Onsrud tool or a $13 imported tool. It just doesn't matter. The best is one that meets all the criteria that you need it to do. So if you would prefer to use the offset method, then be my guest. The only thing that I would suggest is, and Mike Healy's talking about it right here, as a matter of fact, you don't want to plunge a surfacing bit to start off the material. Exactly. You'll want to ramp in your plunge moves. Okay. And that is simply, if we're over here in the pocket tool path, ramp plunge moves right there over a distance of double the bit's diameter at the minimum. So if I'm using this 3/4 inch core box bit, double that is 1.5 inches. So my plunge move will be 1.5, and that's the minimum. I could go 1.75 or 2 inches. It doesn't really matter. But Mike is absolutely right. And I'll show you one reason why. And some people do have some difficulty with this or don't think about it before they jump. This is my surfacing bit. It's a 2-inch Amana RC2255, and I'll put a link to it in the description when we're done. Fair warning, it's pricey, worth every penny. It's got these replaceable carbide cutters, but there's no cutter in the middle. If I just go plunging straight down, I could very well bottom out on any of these tapers here or any of this and just either possibly stall the spindle, destroy the bit, or shatter a piece of material. You don't want that to plunge straight down. But if you ramp it in, meaning it's coming in at an angle like so until it cuts down to the depth, then starts moving flat, then it's fine. And again, ramping in the plunge moves on a pocket tool path is as easy as one check mark and then a distance. This is a 2-inch bit. I'll go 4 inches for this particular bit. And that's the same with, say, a profile tool path. You can ramp here. Just click add ramps to video, then choose what kind of ramp you want. But again, a minimum of double the bit's cutting diameter. No ramping when you're drilling. I don't think there's any ramp. Yes, you can ramp the clearance tool plunge moves here. 1/8 inch end mill, 1/4 inch, and that's in a V-carve tool path. So that's important to remember. And that's what I mean when I say if your bit doesn't have a cutter all the way across the bottom, ramp in the plunge moves. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt. So, let's see here. Okay. Alrighty. Been about an hour and 15 minutes. John Thumb says, it's okay, I have a tiny brain, so trying to get it all. Well, I have a tiny brain and I try to remember it all. So don't feel like you're alone in that. Alrighty. Let's get up here, make sure I didn't miss anything. See, Powell Patterson says, yes, joint on the table saw, good 40-tooth general purpose blades, ideal too, more versatile than single purpose blade. Harbor Freight Hercules and Menards Master Force 40-tooth, both great picks. It just depends on what you're doing. I do like For general purposes, I do like the Diablo blade that I've got, triple chip tooth. Um, Specialty blades are simply that, they're specialty and they are single use. But if you're cutting a lot of material and you want a real good edge, it's worth it to get a glue line rip blade. And I think I want to say, of course, this one is in here. The label is face down. I want to say these are 26. No, they're 30 tooth blades. And this is the full kerf for ripping up to 1 inch. Well, no, it'll go more than that. It's okay for cross cutting. I don't cross cut with it. I don't use it on plywood or laminates, and it's not recommended for non-ferrous metals. It's a good triple chip grind, and 30 teeth. It's a good blade. I like it a lot. Used them in cabinet shops, and it's really worthwhile to me. I do a lot of jointing on the table saw, and there you can get more expensive blades, but I haven't found the need, unless you're talking about, like, if you do a lot of laminates, a lot of melamine or something like that, there are special blades for that as well. Is it called a glue line blade because the cut is suitable for gluing? Yes, absolutely. That's exactly why. So, okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Channel members, tomorrow, the return of spoons. We're going to get this right. So, as if you were with us last week on the members only side, you saw that I was having a little bit of an issue with a handle. Got that issue taken care of. And yes, it was an oversight on my part, but what can you do? We will take care of that tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Check the community tab for the link to that members only live stream. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, or you'd like more information on becoming a channel member, just click that word join down there below this video panel. Another panel will pop up and a video play, tell you all about channel membership. We have a great crowd over there in the channel, in the members only side. And I got to tell you, some of the best people I've ever had the fortune of meeting. And we'd sure love to have you aboard. So that's tomorrow, New Year's Eve. And look for the link on my community tab. For everybody else, I will see you next year. Haha. And I'm not sure that I'm going to have a video next week. I've got one in the makings. We'll see how that works out. But, okay. We'll see how that works out, but don't hold your breath. It might be another open Q&A, but next week I'll have a topic to talk about. So, I hope everybody had a safe and Merry Christmas. I hope your Christmas wishes came true. Kimberly's asking, will the beard be back now that Christmas is over? Who knows? I never know. From what I need a haircut bad. Who knows if the beard will be back? I really don't know. Yes, thank you, Ayal. hit that like button down there. That shows YouTube that somebody cares, and it is a little bit of audience engagement. That proves to YouTube that somebody actually watched. um, since this is the pre-New Year's show, I want to say thank you to everybody, each and every one of you, for the support you've shown me, my wife Linda, and the whole operation that we have here. Like, there's more people. There's not. It's just us. I want to thank you for all the love and support you've shown us. I mean, I keep saying I have the best viewers on YouTube, and you folks prove it every day. And I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. Um, and hopefully you got some value out of some of the 600 plus videos on my channel. And if not, go to the About page on my channel, check for my email right there, and tell me what you want to see. This has never been about me. It's always been about you guys. I want you folks to see that there's nothing magic here. There's nothing mystical. There are no secrets. And if I can do this stuff, you can do this. It's not over your head if you're willing to sit down and work with the software. And you can do everything that I'm doing and more. So that's my mission. And if you've gotten any value out of anything that I've posted, then I've done my job. So just keep at it. Just keep at it, and just keep being you. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a happy new year. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Y'all take care.